2 weeks ago I was talking to you about a 360 where we were working our plot planner doing research. And we mentioned in that video about peaks and valleys. And I talked to a lot of growers that within the same pass in a field, they would see as much as 100 bushel swings. So the yield will be really high, and then they go into the valley and they come back out and they go back into a decent yield again. And you can see it on this yield map. Corn that's well over 250. As we're coming through, all of a sudden we hit an area where over 100 bushel drop in the same pass, then right back up again into that 250. And so many times as growers we say, well, there's really nothing we can do about that. That's just the way that farm is, or nature really dealt us a bad hand this year. I'd like to talk to you for a short time. How do you and I raise these valleys back up so that we're keeping at a consistent yield and we can really increase our profits? Sometimes we think we just need to buy a different farm. And I think instead of going out and spending another $10,000 an acre on an additional farm, maybe we should look at these farms and say, what can we do in all these red and blue areas to take the yield higher? We know that farms have a unique personality in all these different soil types and yield zones. And the more you and I can learn to work with nature and work with that farm, we can have a huge effect. A lot of times it's about putting water on as far as irrigation. In other words, we can help ourselves through these hot, dry summers. But let's face it, across the Central Corn Belt, there's not a lot of irrigation available to a lot of farmers in Iowa and some of the different areas. Without question, though, taking water off can make a huge difference. And for years, I've hired services where we'll fly airplanes over and do NDVI maps and thermal maps that start to show these different soil type personalities and gives us a lot of knowledge on what populations and how do we put N on and where do we need drainage. Or you can do the really simple, cheap method. You can go on Google Earth. And this is a farm that we just purchased, and it's not a fancy farm at all. I went back in 2009 in October, and you can see this wet area. In fact, there's no crop in this area. It's been that way for years on this farm. But the reality is, we came in here where it hasn't had a crop for years, and we brought in pattern tiling. Yes, we spent $800 an acre, but the result was extremely satisfying. And you can see here in the yield map, this is the exact area where that wet was for year after year of no crop. This year soybeans, over 70 bushel wrapped through that area. What about some other things? Well, we know that planting population can have a tremendous effect on yield. As I talk with growers, a lot of times we're pushing yields almost too hard. And when we get into these valley areas, they can't handle the 34, 35,000 in a 30-inch row. And so having a variable rate technology in your planter might be a really good thing where we can take this planting population down. Look at this farm. From 30,000 in the yellow, this is a planting prescription, to 39,000 in the dark green. Right here on this line, it changed 9,000 population to the light green is 36,000. But the end result is we let every plant put on an ear, and the yield really reflects it. Other things besides planting population is nitrogen management. And this is one where you and I, as a grower, really can have an effect on our bottom line. And as we worked on this plot, this is a 360 nitrogen plot. And so we did a once and done in a block here. All the nitrogen up front. As the growing season went through, nature beat on this field pretty hard. An excessive amount of rain. And you can see that this soil type, even though it was a lighter soil type with less plants per acre, this is a 30,000 seeding, it flat ran out of N, and the ears pulled back on the tip, and you could see it. But one pass over of the planter, you can see 140 bushel difference. What happened here? Well, here's where we came in with the 360 wide drop. And with a simple soil scan probe at 12 inches, we never ran this part of the field out. We came in at head high, shoulder high corn. We then put on the application of a partial amount of N, and now you can see the yield difference. At the end of the day, no matter what your personalities are in your field, you and I are responsible, and there are ways we can work with nature and we can have a tremendous yield if we get the knowledge that we need to take us all the way to harvest.